over. All right, let's get to the other opponent, the main rival for Michigan. It's the Ohio State Buckeyes. 11-2 for Ohio State in 2022. 8-1 in the Big Ten. The only Big Ten loss coming to Michigan, which kept them out of the conference championship game. It didn't end up mattering. They made the college football playoff. Gave Georgia a run for its money. You might remember the Ohio State kicker. I forget his name. Missing a field goal literally as the new year was being rung in on the East Coast. Ohio State makes the playoff, loses to Georgia in the semifinals. One note that I was able to do some research on. First time since 2015-16, Ohio State has gone 2 consecutive seasons without winning the Big Ten. I wrote down on my sheet a very asinine statement. Ryan Day hot seat, question mark, despite him being 45-6 at Ohio State. But I think to in all seriousness, big year for Ohio State. You're replacing TJ Stroud. You have the best wide receiver room in the country, in my opinion. You should be really good on defense again. But back-to-back years, you have not beaten the Michigan Wolverines. And you have to go at Michigan this year. You also go at Notre Dame. I don't think Ohio State has a lot of question marks, but certainly this is an important year for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes.
No, yeah, I agree. And when we say no question marks, it gets really tough when you're trying to critique some of these top teams because you're comparing them to, Alabama's, Georgia's, the Clemson's, all of them. And I think the one thing that Ohio State has been struggling with, and I think it'll be a similar story this year, has been, and this used to not be a big issue, but they just don't really have studs in the secondary. And they haven't really since Ryan Day took over. I remember just about every year under Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel, that pretty much all 4 guys that were in the back there were usually
DBU.
first. Yes, they were DBU.
It was them and LSU for DBU. Yep.
Yes. And they just haven't had that. And you've seen that impact their last, like especially last year, it turned its ugly head. That's really the only time it does is when they play the top cream of the crop competition. We saw, Michigan run all over them and hit big explosive plays. We saw Georgia drop a 44-burger on them in the playoff game, in a game that you mentioned. And the kicker was named, by the way, Noah Ruggles was his name. Missed that 50-yarder there at the end of regulation. But this should be a team once again that's there. We still don't know who the quarterback is. All sources seem to point that it's going to be Kyle McCord, the older quarterback. And look, that to me is a position I don't really worry about. You look at the quarterbacks that Ryan Day has had since he got there just as an assistant. Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, all first-round draft picks, no matter who it is. I don't see that any different, especially with the weapons. You also look at the running game, Myron Williams, Travion Henderson, Dallin Hayden are all back. Should be once again a really, really strong offensive line, and that's after losing 2 draft picks as well out there, so maybe a source of concern. But I think the secondary worries me because I do think up front you do return JT Tuimoloau, Tommy Eichenberg is back there at a very good linebacking core, and they're under year 2 under Jim Knowles, so they should see a step forward. I just worry a little bit about the secondary just a little bit, and because it is the first time in a few years they've had an unknown at quarterback.
Yeah, the defense really did improve quite a bit in year 1. They were 14th in total defense, 25th scoring defense. JT Tuimoloau is kind of the next great defensive lineman, following in the likes of the Bosas, Chase Young, etc. Best, we got to mention the wide receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr., 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka, over 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns. Julian Fleming would probably be the number 1 receiver on like 13 other teams in the Big Ten. He's their number 3 receiver. Lucas mentioned Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams. Listen, Ohio State and Michigan, I know we'll get to Penn State. Penn State's offense also should be really good as well. The top of this division is just, it's really, really good. I mean, you might have 3 top 10 teams, right? 3 top 8 teams maybe. Ohio State, Michigan likely top 5, and then Penn State not too far behind. The over-under win total for Ohio State's 10.5. The under is minus 144. The under is plus 118. Out of conference schedule for the Buckeyes, they'll get Youngstown State, Western Kentucky at home. They will get Notre Dame on the road. That game is week 4, September 23rd. In conference, they will host Maryland, Penn State, Michigan State, and Minnesota. On the road, they'll go at Purdue, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Indiana, and Michigan. Lucas, I know they have questions at quarterback, but I'm still going to go over for Ohio State. I don't remember the last time they've been under 10 wins in the regular season. It's one of the more consistently elite programs in the country. Like you said, the quarterbacks, you replace Justin Fields with TJ Stroud, you replace Dwayne Haskins with Justin Fields. I mean, it's just one after the other after the other. It might be the best skill position group in college football. Offensive line should still be pretty good despite losing both of its tackles. And, you get Penn State at home, you get Michigan State at home. Road games at Notre Dame, at Wisconsin, and at Michigan are going to be tough. But I think Ohio State has a good chance to be undefeated heading into the big game.
Gotcha. So, first disagreement of the night. I am going under for Ohio State. And this is not, I mean, they're at 10.5, for God's sake.
Almost knocked my mic over. My goodness. Okay.
But I'm going under. Like I said, I worry a little bit about the secondary. The one thing that they have benefiting for them is really before their first big test at Notre Dame, they have 3 fairly easy games, especially if whether it's Kyle McCord or Devin Brown, to kind of pick things up. I do think that defense should be there. I just don't know if they're better than Penn State or Michigan this year. And like I said, we can post this to Old Takes Exposed, especially because I can't remember the last time since the Big Ten title game has been there that Ohio State has missed it 3 years in a row. I don't think it's ever happened.
Yeah.
But to me, 10-2 is more likely with this team than 11-1, especially like you mentioned, tough road games at Notre Dame, at Wisconsin, at Michigan. Oh, by the way, the last time they played in West Lafayette, guess what happened too? They played at Purdue. They got absolutely steamrolled. So I just think, 10-2, I think with this schedule, more likely than 11-1 for me.
We haven't done our SEC preview. We'll probably do that last year in a couple weeks, but hard for me to find a better division than the Big Ten East when you've got these two teams with Penn State. Maryland's over under 7.5. We'll get to them in a little bit, but really, really cutthroat division in the last year of the Big Ten East.